We're not doing $3. Or not mandatory. I don't want to make anything mandatory. Anybody?
There's one.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, there was one group I was in where you could use like $3 a night, and whoever contributed helped themselves to the pizza. And it was just the honor system. There was no enforcement of it. Yeah. Yeah, even the pizza would be more loose. Anyone can have that, but,
Well, that's basically what they're doing. They're only getting a sponsor every quarter. So what they've done is they've suggested a $5 donation to whoever wants to. Anybody can have a pizza. Would that work for us? Would that not work for us? Okay. We'll maybe.
You don't want to announce.
Well, we will. I didn't want to put it on this meeting because we haven't even come down to what we want to do. Yeah. But I think it's important to have something to see the the other question we asked last time around, are the topics that we're choosing relevant? And last time around, we decided, or we proposed for this meetup that we do something newbie along with something more fun. Two topics. And use that split. I like that idea. So I think that's basically where we ought to be. It seems to be working. I think we've got you guys interested. So that's the ought to say something. We also said that what we want to do is have more hands-on if possible. So after each talk, we will try to have a hands-on experience or something. If that's the direction we want to do that. But I know it's harder to do it, obviously, for the preparer.
Well, I think that having something that could be a little hands-on would be useful to those that are really keen on the particular topic. Yeah, it's going to put a bigger preparation burden on the presenter, but I think that it allows to break into smaller groups and kind of work through some things and try some things out. I think it would be worth doing.
And as I said before, some proposal was we had a conference at some point, or think about having a conference. I think something else that we saw like last week. Speaking of which, I forgot to turn mine coming from Mozilla, I believe. Mozilla speakers. So I'll bring them up. Okay. As far as the meeting nights are concerned, the poll is right there. So go ahead and click on that. Continue. Anything else as far as housekeeping? Does anybody want to volunteer to be another host?
to do what exactly?
You help them with setting stuff up.
We start. This is our normal amount of people. Or we start getting bigger. We're going to need bigger space.
Yes, we will.
Something about.
And by the way, for bigger space, I've already talked to some management. And we can use it up there.
Okay.
Because round table.
Not as comfortable chairs.
No.
They can remove.
You see.
Yeah, we do have That's one of the nice things about being here. The accessibility with it. Sometimes building up at the end of the but all right. Anything else? Has anybody not finished this or not know who we are? I'm Louis.
I'm Dirk.
So, Dirk, are you ready?
I think that I am. I just need to coordinate with Brett on how to broadcast. And so if you want to take a moment.
Take a moment. There's a piece of pizza. If you want to put those pizzas on the side here, just get them out in front of you. And I don't know, it's kind of a thing. So what do I need? Drinking fountain. Right there. It's alcohol.
Okay. So when you do it, make sure
Does anybody not have a bag? Did I not say your name tag for anybody? No name tag? So then. And here's a great resource for you guys. If you want to go back and visit our previous meetings, in the Ethernet, we try to put in links to presentations, sometimes to the video if it exists, if it's still using the same video streaming.
we are broadcasting right now.
Yeah.
And they can hear us. They can't hear you guys.
All right.
So you know.
Thank you. So, feel free to go through those and look at that presentation. And there's a lot of my kickouts out there. We've got, yeah, a lot of it. All of them are YouTube. And if they work to that, yeah. Well, are you ready, Dirk?
Yeah, I think so.
Dirk is going to do a beginner's. What's your topic?
The topic is starting out in Python. And it's really going to be a very rudimentary starting point. If you've actually coded up some Python, you've probably already passed some of this. But we're going to use this more as a group roundtable because there's going to be experiences both of some of us that have been doing Python development for a while and those of you that maybe got started this month. So it's a goal of trying to talk through some of the places where you can look for help and resources on getting started. If you have a point to interject of what you found was troublesome or helpful, please, feel free to participate. One of the things that's really nice about Python is that it has a really dynamic community around it. There's people that are willing to help new people get started. There is kind of a community of best practices. If you're around Python very long, you'll hear about whether or not your solution is Pythonic. And the kind of the way to think about a Pythonic solution is it the simplest that it could possibly be? Can it be easily read and understood? Does it have comments? And there's always the question you ask at the end, can I factor or simplify this further? So you want to take a look at how some of the things will make you a better programmer in making code that is more reusable, and that rather than inventing the wheel yourself, there are tools that you can reuse from other people. Python's all about sharing. So, how many of you are currently having a Python environment on a computer that you use? Okay. So nearly everybody here has an environment. The first place to start to get going would be over at python.org. It is really your starting point for doing anything with Python. And just coming over into the download area, you can find various releases and platforms. And if you're so inclined, you could even get the source and build it up yourself. I don't know that I'm that hardcore, though David probably has done it on one of his, Gen 2 systems?
It does it for me.
Oh, yes, does it for you. So David, he's our resident paranoid, and just because he is doesn't mean that there's not reason for it. So it's nice to know that you can do it as far as the easy way of downloading a binary, or you can build it up yourself to make sure that you know everything that's going on in there. Well, I'm on Windows tonight, so I am going to take the Windows binary release. If you haven't started programming in Python, you don't have a flavor, I highly recommend that you use the 3x line. You're going to find a lot of support for Unicode or for type conventions in your multi-language features. There's going to be some things that will keep you in a safer position in your development. If you're working on a legacy system that is in the 2.7, then yes, that would be a good spot to go, but if possible, work in the 3x realm. So I'm going to download the latest Python 3. Yes.
The 351.
Mm-hmm.
You have it on that update thing, or you download it?
It doesn't have an automatic. Oh, the question was if Python has an automatic update feature. A lot of it's going to depend on your operating system. Some operating systems do. Others kind of give you a manual upgrade path. Who normally runs Windows? Chris, do you know about upgrade or how that's behaved?
So I use the NX other, and I think that might have to upgrade. Wait, may have upgraded, but and I've upgraded their modules pieces, but I'm not actually taking an upgrade itself. So I assume that it would be but you know that?
answer to the question is Python does not have a way of automatically upgrading itself. If you just go out there and install it, it's going to install it in a new folder, I believe. Other tools like Anaconda have been proposed, and those have tools built into upgrade versions and create virtual environments using whatever version you want and things like that. I don't know if that helps, but
It doesn't depend on how you're operating at the very lowest level Python downloaded from the website. It's just like using it.
for production reasons, there's a good reason for that. When you don't want to change upgrade versions without having proper testing done, right? So as far as production environment, a production environment goes, you just don't want it to automatically update it. You want to run through tests and upgrade your system that way. Whereas when you're development, tools like Anaconda, things like that, you might want to develop the newest and best all the time. So you can keep upgrading better and more. But
So the first part would just be getting a basic Python setup. How many of you, though, work in command line or just on your own? That's Dave. Brett, it's always a good place to be able to feel comfortable with. One of the other areas that you probably want to take a look at once you get started in the Python environment is to look at a good editor system. And whether you're a Vim user or Emacs, or if you tend to lean to one of the integrated development environments, finding a development system that you're comfortable with and proficient with is going to help you a great deal. Dave, you use probably primarily Emacs, don't you?
Yeah. We actually, I don't know if they'll come on speaker or not, but we actually had a session a while back looking at what is the best or what are the choices available. And of course, it got very lively, as lively as techies can get about which platform they want to choose. So, yeah, go back if you want to take a look at that. I'll see if I can look it up and put up a link to it on the
I think it was 2
meetings ago. I'll look for that.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Who else has a preference in a development environment who'd like to weigh in what they use and why they like it? Yeah. Some of my first forays into Python development, I found that PyCharm was extremely helpful in helping me track down syntax errors and keeping me more PEP8 compliant. Because I'm coming more from a either a C or PHP background, and so sometimes I'm a little loose on naming conventions and keeping things indented, and the PyCharm was very helpful for a lot of that, especially when it came time for refactoring. It made a lot of suggestions on refactoring decisions that were very quick to take advantage of. My own personal problems that I had back was it wasn't Emacs, but other than It wasn't Emacs. I really liked the auto helps and the auto complete suggestions. And I finally have gotten my Emacs more to that level of auto complete.
Yeah, please forgive my blasphemy, but professionally, I'm tied to Visual Studio. I see the Visual Studio has a Python add-ons. That. Good. Did I just read all that behind?
The question was that he's rather tied or fond and used to the Visual Studio tools, and whether or not the add-on tools for Python are worth the expenditure. I can't tell you because I don't work in that environment. Is there anybody that has had any experience in the Visual Studio?
Like Microsoft.
Yes, the Microsoft development
Yeah, I
environment.
heard that was actually pretty good. And Microsoft is more open source. And I think they're using stuff that do now.
I would expect that if it isn't super mature now, very soon it's going to be very, very good. Microsoft, in their developer world, doesn't tend to leave their developers lack or wanting of features for long. So if there's starting to be a demand for Python on Windows, which there really is, Microsoft is, if they haven't, are stepping up to the plate.
That sounds like a good presentation.
Maybe I'll have a look at that.
Yeah, that would be great if you want to take that. David.
I think one of the outcomes of our IDE editor discussion was that most of them pretty much do everything that all the others do. So it really doesn't matter which one you pick, but it's worth learning whichever one you pick well. A lot of my coworkers, they do JavaScript and Ruby, and I watch them, spend so many seconds, like when they take out an if block and re-indent all the code. They go through and re-indent every line one by one, and it drives me nuts watching them spend the time on that when they could, click one little spot and hit a hotkey and have it done. But just about every editor or IDE will have some nifty features that are well worth learning.
Yeah, Chris.
Well, I've noticed, so like I said, I have kind of this development environment called Spider, and for the most part, it works for me, but I have noticed that saying what I'm doing seems like I'm running into problems, like I'm trying to do some messing around with like crafting, with the sort of application development, and it seems like it when you ran that in the environment, it was constant and then it crashed. So what I'm wondering is there certain things you want to do outside of like an answer development environment? For whatever reason. So that, of course, was my particular one.
The question was, is crashing in the Anaconda environment particular to developing of some apps versus others?
Yeah, mostly I'm wondering, you can either do like Barebones and the text editor, develop these scripts, or you can do interactive development environment. Is there a time when you wouldn't want to use the interactive development environment? It's not work.
When you're fixing a bug on your live production server. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
Well, here's the thing, frankly, just in general, not necessarily for Python, but in general, going back, I don't want to say how many years in the business, it's always better to learn one thing at a time. So if you're trying to fight Python and fight learning an interactive development environment at the same time, choose something simple. When I started out learning Python, I just used Notepad++ and an add-on. And it was enough to give me enough confidence to continue. I've moved up from there one level. I haven't gone to a full development environment yet, but what I'm using right now is Sublime, which is fine. It's not like a Microsoft .NET type environment. It's enough to just get me going. It also challenges you a bit more to find your bugs, frankly, if you're using a simpler environment that doesn't have all the bells and whistles. That's my 2 cents.
On whether it makes sense to use bare bones versus a full-blown IDE, I think if you have full control over your environment that you're working on, the IDE or the environment that you set up will help you be more productive. But I think that there are also times when you might be at a remote console or a remote install, and you're trying to look at things at the basic level. It is useful to be able to know how to drop into just straight Python interpreter and be able to load up modules and poke around and take a look at how things behave on that particular machine. Because you might have a situation where on a remote machine that you've got a library that's out of date, or that doesn't match what you have, or you've got environmental paths that are set up differently. And having the ability, even on a remote machine, to get down and look at the very basics is a useful thing to be able to do. So as much as I highly recommend getting to know your development environment to be as productive as you possibly can, it's also good to be able to drop down to command line and poke at it when that's all you've got.
Your computer wants your attention. It's blinking.
It's blinking. Oh.
The way I look at it is, if you have your car and your tire's flat, it's okay to go out, change your tire in the street. But if you're going to rebuild your engine, you might want to get in to all of your tools, be close to all your tools, and rebuild your project there. So when you're developing a big project, it might be nice to have a good project management and the IDE. Something like that. If you do something small, it's okay to take one tool with you or a couple tools with you and go fix it there. It all depends on you, really.
I think it's pulled down a little more. Then actually, I just did this during the break and couldn't take it.
Well,
You'll only have to restart Windows a few times.
this machine is an older relic and kind of dusted it off, pulled off with this. And like all my other machines were installed. Questions at this point? Once you get things installed, the next place that you really need to know is where to get help and information. So one of the first things is python.org, and in the documentation, you have beginner's guide, and then there are several tutorials that are worth going through. There's also several good books on it, but if you want to be most current pieces, online's probably the easier way to go. David, do you have any particular resources that help you get going on Python, or?
Yeah, I look everything up on python.org in the documentation. They've got excellent documentation, and that's my go-to place. I don't bother with Google or Stack Exchange or anything. I just goes in the standard library box. If I have a language question, I'll go to the language reference as well.
And so David's suggestion is use the Google Docs, use the language reference, and
Not the Google Docs.
not the Google Docs, the Python
Yes.
documentations. And this is where the community in Python really shines. Because if there's something that is weak or confusing, the community seems to jump in to help clean things up in a big hurry. You have to have a bit of a thick skin to participate in this, because if it is not to community standards, they're happy to let you know this. But it will be the best possible code that you can produce, or the best possible documentation that you can produce. They will help you with it. So that is a good place to go. Any other thoughts on points that anybody has questions on? Chris?
So I got a book. I think it's called IPython. It's one of the O'Reilly books. And I think that's kind of helpful because, like, if you're like me, not a computer, and so it's like I kind of know what a class is. It's a little fuzzy. It's nice to just like flip to that section of the book, and it gives me an introduction to it and the basics. And whereas if I Google it, if I Google class, 50,000 results, or if I go to I can go to like tutorials and stuff, so it's almost like there's to have a compact reference beginning level.
So Chris's comment is that very often that a good beginner's book helps give you concrete examples of common problems that you would be faced with in starting out in Python programming. And I kind of follow into Chris's camp that a good book gives me, I like cookbook style programming books that has a particular style of problem and how they would go about trying to solve it. And they come into various categories, like, when does it make sense to use a dictionary versus a list, and some pieces like that. I can endorse what Chris is saying in finding a good book. I like David's approach because you've always got a definitive authority on language structure pieces. So I think a lot of people find a combination of those two levels to be the most optimal combination. Louis.
I'm going to add a comment here. I found that a couple of websites that actually have tutorials going step by step as a really great place to start to understand the syntax and what's possible, and to explain the difference between a string and a dict and all the rest of it that are a little bit new to me as an old world programmer. So coming into it from that direction, the tools you use, there are so many, and help is always just a few clicks away, realistically. We're living in a world where the book is just a relic. And by the way, that's my dissertation topic about ebooks. So, there are a lot of free online books as well. Don't forget that.
So once you've got a basic Python interpreter installed and you've got an editor, you're at a point where you can begin working with Python. You can do it all interactively in the interpreter, but you eventually need to have an editor to be able to keep your development work so you can bring it up between instances. The next area that you really have to start exploring on Python is learning the libraries that are available. One of the best things about Python is that if you have a problem that you're looking to solve, more than likely somebody has either created a library for it already or has interfaced out to another C library that does what you're looking to do. So how do you go about finding those libraries? Brett, how do you go about finding libraries of utilities or routines for Python?
I find libraries mostly from the community, learning what's out there and applying that to projects I'm working on.
So what are your, I mean, I just use basic Google searches, and you could use about 3 or 4 different sources to tell me, hey, this is a great tool, this is a great tool, this is a great tool. With examples.
So we've got, talking to the community, we've talked to Google looking for libraries. Other resources, David?
The Python package index. It's sometimes called the cheese shop, and I have no idea why. But it's at pypi.python.org, or you can just Google for Python. And it has a search interface. You can enter keywords, and it will show you what libraries have those keywords in their descriptions. And it ranks them by popularity and longevity. So it's great.
So the
PYPI.
PYPI, it's a Python package index. They call it the cheese shop because of a skit done by Monty Python, and Python is named after the British comedy troupe Monty Python. The cheese shop is the man goes in and asks for all kinds of cheeses, and no, we don't have any of that. But I would recommend this. Well, do you have some? No, we don't have that. So it's kind of a thing of all these kinds of cheeses that were recommended but weren't available in that particular cheese shop. So, but it is an amazing resource. You'll find that if you spend 5 to 10 minutes there, that you will probably cut out hours of rewriting something that you could borrow from somebody else. So never write what you can borrow from someone else. Chris?
Do you know if there's any security if you downloading random people's packages on that?
There's always a risk on downloading. So the question was, is there security risks on downloading from PyPy? Yes, there's always a risk. I think that if you look at packages or libraries that are higher utilization, more people using it, and has some level of longevity, if they're doing some of the basic security pieces, generating security stamps for the packages, I think you can feel fairly confident about them, but yeah, there's always a risk.
Also look for recommendations.
Yes.
And almost all packages listed on are being on GitHub. You can mostly look at the source code. You have to go through the source code and verify what it's sending out.
Yeah. So if you don't know what to look for, you must
FBI surveillance, yeah. That's a big one.
in the code. So, yeah.
Okay.
So how we do?
I think that my install got stuck. I don't know.
No, that one already has installed
Okay.
on that computer, so if you want to switch to thing from me.
Does anybody need to see Python at the command line? Or okay, sure. Wow. Ouch. That hurt. So I got an environment already set up. Oh. So Python, at the most simplest, is bringing up the Python interpreter, and then you have the ability to begin issuing Python statements. So you could do something like A equals 5. And if we typed A, we'd get back its value. So if we did B equals 3, so we could do X equals A plus B. Well, so we're getting some basic functionality out of the Python system already. And you can begin learning Python just that easily. So what's the first program that every computer programmer ever does?
Fibonacci.
Yes. No.
Recursive?
Oh,
The hello world.
oh, right.
So,
Yeah, I was like, that's the first one. You're amazing. 'Cause
so how do we begin? Print.
So,
Wow.
Dirk, you got my
Never get it right.
finger.
Yeah,
You never get it right the first time.
I have presentation anxiety when it comes to typing. So, at its simplest, this begins with Python. So, there are several other tools that I highly recommend taking a look at as well. IPython gives you what's that? Yeah. It gives you a little bit of command completion. Gives a little bit of syntax checking, so you can kind of see there where it's matching up my braces. If I had done something, really different, it didn't match up, so that might give me a clue on Well, actually, let's do it. Wrong. Syntax error. Nice thing is just bring my up arrow key and I can fix it very quickly. So IPython can give you not only the command line features, but it also brings in some of the auto completion. Yes.
If this takes you too off guard, of course, we can talk about it later. So I just downloaded. You don't have the IPython library. What is the process for going out and getting these libraries? So getting them installed?
The question is what is the process for getting IPython installed on your system? This is a question I don't know under the Windows environment. It's just what?
Pip install.
So pip install IPython.
Install something. You're in the virtual environment up there.
Yeah.
Are you guys keeping up?
Yeah, I'm just, they all continued with another class I didn't have to take.
Oh.
See, you just installed NumPy from the Cheese Shop by using pip.
They have it?
So
Are you? Yeah. Oh, you're in. Okay, so you're in Python right now, the interpreter. You can't. Pip is a command line.
Oh, okay.
So open Windows PowerShell or command line in it. If it's installed in your source, you should be able to run it.
I'm
You might
going,
have to do it as an administrator though.
I'm going to fill in a couple of blanks here on what you were talking about there. One of the interesting things in Windows that we get into, one of the troublesome areas, is when you install Python or any of the commands in Windows, you have to update your paths. And you can only do that in PowerShell. Because the old command.com or the old auto-exec that used to exist in Windows is no more. So PowerShell now works your paths.
Up to Windows XP, and I don't have experience past that. There was somewhere that you could click, I think you could right click on my computer and go to user profile and add environment variables there. And then it affects every program that you run, and you don't have to add it to a script or type it into PowerShell every time you open up the interpreter.
And that's it. In PowerShell, you could do that as well. So there were several ways to get there, but you had to modify the path. That's all I'm getting. Otherwise, you won't see Python. Once it's installed, though, anything you pip and install at that point goes to the takes care of itself. That's one of the gotchas.
Organic kind of system handle all that stuff.
Different, and that's one of the wild things about Python is that where you used to have one method to do anything, the Windows method, now we've got dozens and dozens and dozens of tools out there. So you could exploit. And everybody's adding to this all the time. It's a true collaborative development. Thank you.
I think that the big point that I want to bring across is that Python is a very exciting, dynamic development, both language and community. There is kind of along the lines, I think you could say, it's a dangerous world out there. Don't go alone. The Python community is very willing to help you on your way and to make sure that you've got the tools and the help necessary to make yourself successful. And really, I think your imagination is the limit on what you can do. I've seen some very interesting projects running from the numerical analysis sections of Python where you're just really at command line and numbers, and Chris is kind of very familiar with that environment, numerical analysis, to the realm of using Python as a fully graphical development environment like Kibbe. So you've got anywhere from visual intelligence. What is that? That's OpenView or
OpenCV.
OpenCV. Yes, thanks, David. You have OpenCV where you can do computer vision. You have the ability for GIS systems, and it really is sky's the limit. So get out there and explore and have a good time. And if you have questions, hit our group up on Meetup or come to our meetings with questions. And if you have a question that we can't answer, maybe it's time that we help you research it, and so that you can give a presentation on how you solve your problem. Any other questions or comments from anybody? Okay.
Kelly online, he's with us online, says use Anaconda.
Just use Linux. Let your package manager do it.
I agree with
So, McKelly, his point is use Anaconda. Okay, for a Windows environment.
Yeah.
David.
I've got a couple other starter things to show. If you go into a Python interpreter, let's see, type, got to remember what language I'm in. From math import star. Now type, press enter. dir as a function call, and press enter on that. No, call the function dir. Oh my gosh. Except typing names added.
Yeah.
Do it again. There we go. All right. So dir shows you everything that's in your current lexical environment. Do this one, help, as a function call. Just invoke it. So right in your interpreter, you have a built-in help system. Type modules and press enter. It shows you a list of all of the modules that are currently installed in its path. You can type a module name, like type RE, and press enter. And it shows you the same documentation here that you would get in python.org.
It's very Unixy.
It is. Exit out of this.
It even has good
But,
controls.
so, right here on module, certain things pop up in your help. Like run help on your own module.
If you put it in the right place, and if you use the dot strings in your code, that's where those are being pulled from. It's the dot strings from all of those modules. So now go back to your command interpreter, not Python. Type Python -m space pydoc, pydoc, and press enter. Okay, give it the command line argument of -b at the very end. So -m and then module name is how you run the module as if it were like the main method of a program. PyDoc is the module that interprets your doc strings in a module. So this should open a web browser on your system, but it might be in background window somewhere. But this will show you in a web browser everything that we just saw in the interactive help on the interpreter, but everything's hyperlinked. You can click it. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Yeah. So I love that because sometimes I've got extra stuff installed and I don't know where the documentation for it is. It's on my system though. Okay, that's all.
Okay.
And I've also included the link I found really useful. On
The Etherpad.
Etherpad. So play with it.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll take a break.
Let's take a break.
5 minutes.
5 minute break.
So it'll be a 5-minute break, and then we'll go to our next presentation. Brace yourselves for the Skynet of Python.
No.
Are we still streaming?
Yes. I don't know how to stop it, start again without killing all my people that are watching. Sorry, you have to deal with it.
That gets me more.
Okay. Now, if anybody hasn't gone to the poll, last call.
Okay. Oh, okay. We'll import this.
Finish it up.
If you've never done it, and you're in the Python REPL, import this.
Oh, is that a Python?
You import the module this.
Except not be able to navigate.
And this is not my first one. And all my assets are so
Yes, it's H keys and make yourself type a passphrase.
There's an agent that caches it for 5 minutes or something.
How much hopping do you do?
Having a life.
And I am wildly
He was just
Good.
telling me
about being very conscious, but leaving this for another
But hey, Alex, I've been thinking of my children with what? Yeah. Oh yeah, I heard that.
For me, it was really.
what resolution?
Yeah,
720?
Okay. You guys do a lot
Oh, the switch to?
No, I'm not on. I just want to. And what is it usually? 24 by 7?
I know, yeah.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby.
That's not bad.
This is a big thing. We can do first.
I think
I know, I'm just saying, but this should have been reversed, so that way she did nothing wrong, I think.
it's probably stepping it down lower than that.
For the bandwidth.
Yeah.
You haven't gone to the.
Sorry about it.
Oh, I'm on. I didn't qualify.
Better for me.
Okay,
Thomas,
maybe,
Thomas,
let me finish the refund the email. Yeah, I can talk to the professor afterwards, and he said, yeah, you could use it, and what? I don't know. I was like, yeah, we spoke about nothing database. I was telling him, but. By the way, those who are fans of Linux, Windows honestly edition should help you out to get some online or other bash on Windows. Linux, try it out.
I'm using Windows all the critical machine.
Like sort of Linux operating system on a Mac.
Like native or you
Yeah.
don't know which one?
Like parallel?
No, like
Or
this
Google.
like I can't upgrade this operating system anymore. Cool.
So you don't even want dual boot, you just want to straight up install it?
Yeah, I just want.
I've done that before. In fact, my
Just do it. Just go for it.
you know, if it's an Intel processor, it's really pretty straightforward.
And yeah, and I can get like a newer or like an up to date Linux.
You can get elementary. Look up elementary OS. It
That's
is
a beautiful
very
OS.
pretty. Looks like Mac. It's got the ribbon down there.
It's too young on it.
It is fairly,
And it also has an older,
and its design is based on graphical look,
No,
not.
which one is like that? It's not like the oldest machine, two snappy projections. You know what?
it's not depending on the model.
I'm actually running it right here. This is elementary.
So they got the same bar at the bottom as macOS.
Yeah. Ribbon down there, whatever it's called.
It's elementary OS.
For short, they call it LOS. 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 Something like that, I think. But elementary OS is the better. It does have some problems,
Yeah, you can.
but that's newer stuff.
What's that?
It does have some issues with that new boot system that Microsoft has.
IPython.
IPython, yeah. But I guess you don't have to worry about that because you're.
Yeah, he won't have it. It's only Windows systems that you don't
I'll just be on the hang.
Yeah, this laptop is too old and can't update it. Mac OS.
Remember the privacy issues and Ubuntu now has the amount of data that they're sending out. I mean, it's not different from Windows, but I think that the next system is doing that.
Yeah, it's.
But other than
Yes, I used to work for Costco. Is that why you don't work for them anymore? They became too big brother for us.
That was a small part. It was her to stay bought in.
That's why you like Unity now, right?
They have no big download.
They're struggling. Put it on.
JetUS.
Okay. You get into, you get on the network, and then you just, but look for the, macro,
Like 2 hours.
instruction. Where you'll find that, it really does bring the light to the work. No, you showed me the.
Yeah, they're doing this. Why get away?
No.
Where's my coat?
Yeah, but you can't get like up-to-date browsers and stuff for
That's smart.
Cool. So, yeah, there's a bunch of plugs.
That's not so good.
I got one right here. I can plug it in here.
I don't want someone to. Thank you.
So I hit the hangout link at the bottom of the other tab, and that's no good.
At the bottom, it should be the top.
Okay.
I don't know if
That must have been from a
previous. Unless the copy and paste.
Not a lot of choices.
Can you hear me?
Well, maybe we should turn this on.
Earlier.
I think.
All right,
I don't know
testing.
if you-
Okay, Kelly heard me, so I guess we're good. Or Mick Kelly, sorry. Just tell me when you want it to go.
Week of the month are very close. So what I'll probably end up doing is put it to hands up in this room. Second week or third week of the month. Preference.
I have to.
It depends on the day we choose.
Yeah, okay, let's go to the day we choose then. As far as day we choose.
The day we choose also depends on what we.
Okay. All right. All right, we've got a recursive loop here. Okay, so it looks like, again, Tuesday is ahead once again. Wednesday is number 2. So of those two choices, what are your preferences?
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
On the third week.
Okay, so we're back to third week Tuesday. Is that what you're telling me? Okay, we're staying with third week Tuesday. Thank you all. Any objections?
Same that time.
Same bad time, same bad shuttle. Okay.
Okay, let me share my screen. And will it be up there?
Yes, it'll be up there. Yeah, if you share your screen.
Yes. Okay. I just ate a lot of bandwidth. I'm sorry. Okay. So let's see, and I want to make sure that we can still hear me so far. Does somebody raise their hand or say yup? McKelly, or is the audio awesome? Thank you very much, McKelly. All right, so a little bit of background on this presentation. We're doing this presentation because, was it a year ago, we had an artificial intelligence challenge. We implemented the game of Battleship with a graphical front end, and that was part of a presentation that Dave Ernstrom gave to teach us a different way to manage your interfaces besides traditional MVC. But then we implemented our own AI bots to play the game of Battleship against each other to see who would win. And we want to do another AI challenge, but we want more people to be able to participate than were able last time. So the purpose of this presentation is not so much to show you how to do AI in Python with example code. It's to teach you the general way to think about AI when you're applying it to a game. Okay, so almost no code in this presentation. Sorry about that, but oh well. So I've listed out here different AI strategies that you can use in a game. I've got 7 of them here. And I'll go over all of them in order, and I've got opinions about everything, so I'll share.
He's got opinions about everything.
Yeah. I've got an opinion about having opinions, too. Okay. So the first AI strategy is to just move randomly. So you can, like in Battleship, when you're deciding where to place your boats, pick a random spot. When you're deciding where to place your shots, pick a random spot that's not been shot at yet, and so on. Another form of randomness, and it's a little bit more complicated, is an evolutionary or genetic approach where you're saying, well, let's try several different things and then find out which strategies are working the best. Maybe mix them together in a way, like, you know, cross-pollinate your strategies and then throw them all at the problem again and see what works again. A couple of problems with that, though, is it takes a lot of processing power and a lot of trials to get anywhere with that. And it doesn't converge very well, although if you really have no clue what the search space is like, you know, what types of strategies would be good for the game or whatever, then that's not a bad way to start out. Another downside is it's hard to interpret what came out of the system. If you've got a genetic algorithm that has a string of, you know, mathematical operations, you know, and it's doing a bunch of stuff, and you'll look at that and you'll say, well, it's winning, but we have no idea why. Chris, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's kind of out of left field, but
Okay.
How would you define what artificial intelligence is?
I'm not even going there. Look it up on Wikipedia.
No, I mean, like, because you could use it in a bunch of different ways. Like you're talking about Battleship, but they use artificial intelligence for like classifying pictures, and you know, Siri is art. So, but those are all vastly different kinds of things. So
they are, and
so what is it about all of those that is tied together? I'm just wondering, when you're talking about randomness, I'm trying to picture how that would apply to these different types of
different domains.
yeah.
I don't know. I could spend a lot of time going into that. And did you have a comment?
I can't hear anybody else with you online.
Oh yeah,
So repeat the
sorry.
question.
Dirk's great at this. Okay, so the question was, how do some of these things apply to domains outside of making a bot for a game? And AI is such a big field. It really is like throwing a computer at anything a person would normally do and expecting it to make some judgment calls on its own and do a good job at it. So it depends a lot on the field. One thing that comes to mind about randomness is with the deep learning neural networks for computer vision that Google has come out with to classify images as objects. Another team of researchers took their training data and their trained neural network, and then they figured out what is the minimal amount of noise that we can add to this picture to get it to misclassify. And what they found out in almost every case, that the amount of noise to add to a picture to get it to completely misclassify was humanly imperceptible. A person could not tell that there was noise added, even looking at the two pictures side by side. The next thing that they did was, what is the minimal amount of noise just on a flat gray background that we can get to classify as the thing? And then you start looking at these gray images with just a little bit of noise on them that the classifier says, that's a school bus, that's a duck. And there's like nothing there that a human would pick up on and say, yeah, that looks like a school bus. So, but that was an application of randomness to kind of break an AI in a sense. So, sky's the limit, I guess. Okay, so one interesting thing about randomness, it might be a good way to start, and it might be a good way to try to find the general area of a good solution if you don't know what the shape of the space looks like, but it is never optimal. And if you already have a good algorithm and you try to add randomness into it, it will start underperforming. So I touched briefly on neural networks there, artificial neural networks. It's really amazing what you can train an artificial neural network to do. One of the big shortcomings there, well, let me talk about what it can do. It can do all sorts of pattern recognition. The AI that plays Go and beat, I think last I heard was it beat the world champion at Go. One of the parts of that AI is an artificial neural network that is looking for patterns on the board that it has seen in other games. So, you know, these things have a lot of use. A downside to artificial neural networks, as these researchers pointed out, is it is so easy to overtrain them, overfit them for your data. If you're looking at it from a statistical approach, it's like you've got 10 data points and you've got 9 or 10 coefficients on your polynomial that you're fitting, and you don't know what your error bounds are or anything like that. So it might look good with your training set, but as soon as you get out of your training set, you don't know what's going to happen. So personally, I tend to stay away from randomness in artificial neural networks, but it is really amazing what those can pull off, especially if you have no idea what else to try. So getting into the deterministic and kind of more predictable things, the first one to cover is a heuristic system, which simply means it runs off of a set of rules. Battleship is a great example of playing by heuristics. If you get a hit on the board, you know right away that you've got 4 squares on the grid around that hit that you want to check. And so you start checking, okay, let's go north, let's go east, let's go south. We got a hit on south, so now we've got a line. Let's start hitting along that line until we sink the ship. So you can write just a simple set of rules, if this, then that, if this, then that. That's a heuristic system. If you base those rules on an expert by interviewing them, okay, Mr. Expert, what would you do in this situation? And you try to write up a set of rules for what they would do, and maybe you are the expert, then we call that an expert system. But really, it's just following a set of rules. And feel free to stop me to ask for more details about these, even though I'm not showing you code. I I can explain, elaborate a little more if you want. Another type of AI is called an agent system. And this involves some randomness, and this is usually used by the non-player characters in a computer game. So if you're playing like World of Warcraft, I don't know, does it have non-player characters or is it all people? Okay, so you'll have a non-player. Sorry, I've never played it.
They're called NPCs.
Okay, yeah. So NPCs. They'll have like different states that they will be in, like maybe it's holding a position and just waiting for someone to come around, or maybe it's roaming around the perimeter, or maybe the NPC goes into attack mode. So depending on the game and what the time scale is, whether it's like turn-based or real-time, you'll have something that's stateless or stateful. So stateless is like every turn, roll the dice and figure out what we're going to do. We're going to shoot, or we're going to move, or we're going to collect resources, or whatever. But in a real-time system, you tend to be stateful. Right now, we're in the collecting state, and 90% chance we'll stay in that state. 10% chance we'll transition to another state. So you'll see an NPC collect for a little while, and then just kind of randomly, eventually, he'll start wandering off somewhere else to look for an opponent. So that gives you something that looks kind of human, but if the point of the game is to win, it probably won't do very well unless you kind of blend that with an expert system of some kind. Like an expert 90% of the time will be building roads and cities and walls, and 10% of the time building troops, something like that. Okay. Another strategy for artificial intelligence is to do a search over what are all the possibilities. This is easy in a game like tic-tac-toe, chess, Go, or Battleship, at least conceptually easy, but very difficult in a more continuous type game like World of Warcraft, Command and Conquer, anything that has a fine grid or a fine time scale. It gets very difficult to make a search like this. But the basic idea is to say, for example, in tic-tac-toe, somebody put an O in the center, so we could put an X on the corner or an X on the side. Let's pretend to put an X there and then see what the other player might do as a response. So now you're like expanding nodes on a search tree where the root is where we are now. The first level is every possible move we could take. The next level is every possible move the opponent can take, and so on. And the idea is that you expand the tree out and find where your winning conditions are at the end, and then you walk that back up to say which move from the current position led to all of those win conditions. So exhaustive search works great for tic-tac-toe. The game is solved, so to speak, because we know how to play it perfectly. We can't exhaustively search chess yet. We can come relatively close, and Go is nowhere near exhaustively searchable. Just way too many possibilities. The branching factor is tremendous. So there are some search strategies that can help with that. One of them, the most famous, is probably A-star search, and that is where at any given node in this tree, you say, well, you kind of make an evaluation of what you think the score might be at the end as a conservative guess. And if you're trying to map out a route from point A to point B, you can say that the heuristic might be, well, as the crow flies. If I could go in a straight line from here to there, then it's going to be at least 22 miles. And we know that taking a road, it's going to be at least as long because the road's not going straight from point A to point B. So it's in that case, as the crow flies is a conservative guess of what the state looks like. So what you do is at every node in your search tree, you say you determine what this cost function looks like, for each of its children. And then you put those children in a list, and you sort that by the cost function. And then you start taking off whichever node, whichever child node, has the lowest cost in that entire list. And then you look at its children, calculate the cost function there, and put all of those children on the list, sort it again, and you keep doing that. So what tends to happen is the most likely path tends to stay at the front of the list. But this only works if you get a cost function that is truly conservative. It never goes over what the actual cost would be. Because if you do that, things can sort out of order, and then you might get to the end, but you might have missed the optimal thing. So that's A-star search. Another way to tackle a big search space is called a beam search. And that, instead of expanding all of the children, for example, chess has something like 19 possible moves that you can do at the very beginning of the game. Instead of expanding all 19 of those and then all 19 of their children and so on, and getting, you know, thousands width on this tree, you might say at any given time we will limit our search to only 30 or 50 nodes wide in this tree. And we'll take whichever 30 or 50 or whatever look best at the moment, but we're not sure. And then that way you don't have the big branching factor that causes exponential blow up. Any questions? Okay.
I guess I do have
Sure.
one question. How do you determine your group of branches in a beam?
Okay, so the question is, how do you determine the group of branches that go in a beam? So the idea is that with a beam search, usually you are expanding from top down, so that all of the nodes that you're currently considering are at the same depth in the tree, and then you just limit how many you have at that depth. So the branches that you're considering don't have to be related to each other at all. They could have forked off from one another at the very beginning. So there's no relation between them. It's just whichever ones at that depth are the n best. And then you expand them, get the next set down, and then you sort them by what you think would be best and then chop them off. Okay. I had a program that would schedule projects among teams, and doing just an exhaustive search, it was going to take something like 1 billion hours to run. I added beam width limiting to it with about 30 beams or something like that, and now it runs in 30 seconds or less. And I designed it to get within 10% of what the theoretical optimal will be. So I actually combined A-star and beam search on that one. So, you know, that can take things from astronomical to you can wait patiently. Okay. So another strategy is called evaluation. And this one is used in chess a lot. So, in fact, chess uses evaluation by expert rules quite a bit, especially if you're playing as a human being in a tournament. So you might say your queen is worth 9 points, your rook is 5, bishop and knight are worth 3, and all of your pawns are worth 1 point. And then you add that up, tally your pieces and your opponent's pieces, and whichever one has the highest score has the best set of pieces. So it's a quick and easy rule to implement, and it's a way to evaluate, put a value on the current position. A lot of the chess software will also evaluate pawn structure. Are your pawns staggered so that they are reinforcing one another? Or are they straight line, which is not as valuable? Or do you have one pawn kind of stranded out from the others? That's less valuable as well. So there are all sorts of different rules that you can apply to a board or a game to figure out how good is this position. And then you can tie that, all of these strategies can be mixed together. So for chess, for example, we'll do a search and we'll say, all right, we can move this piece here or this piece here or this piece here, and we expand that tree down a ways, and then we evaluate the position at the end of the tree, even if we haven't hit the end of the game, because sometimes that's just too far deep. So we evaluate the board after like 20 moves or something, and then we say which branch, which first move gives me the highest average value function, and you take that move. You don't know that it's going to win, and the game might turn south really bad right after that last node that you expanded, but it tends to work pretty well. Besides having an expert come up with the rules to evaluate, you can statistically evaluate them. In my Battleship bot, that's something that I did. I evaluated how likely is an enemy ship to be placed at any point on the grid. And for the initial condition of you don't have any shots out yet, you can do an exhaustive evaluation. You can enumerate all the possible ways to place ships on the board and then figure out which squares are most likely. And I stored that away, hard-coded it. But then as the game goes on, as I find out, okay, there's a ship here somewhere because I've got to hit here, but I don't know which way it's facing. I've got to miss 2 squares away, so I know it can't extend that direction that far. So now, where are the ships likely to be? So now I'm expanding out the search space, saying, okay, a ship could be here or here or here, and then I'm tallying up all of the times a particular grid space has a ship on it. So now I have statistics, and now I know which square is the most likely to have a ship, statistically speaking. So put the shot there. One particular type of evaluation by search is called smoothed analysis, and this is the other half of the AI system for Go. And that is because we have such a hard time evaluating a Go position as a human being, or finding out a set of rules that evaluates a Go position accurately. What we do is we'll expand out some possible moves, and we'll follow branches randomly because we have no way to trim off bad moves. So we'll just randomly pick a subset of moves to keep expanding down, and so it's kind of like a beam width at that point. But instead of taking the best 50 beams, we're taking a random 50 beams, but it's going to be more like 1,000 or 10,000 beams. Expand them down as far as you determine, and then see statistically which ones tend to lead to an end game where you win versus an end game where the opponent wins. And then you collect those statistics back up to the top, and you say, based on sampling my possible moves and the possible responses and so on, this move seems to be the best. All right, the last and highest level of AI, at least for a game, not for other AI, is what I'll call anticipation. And this is where you try to model how the opponent is thinking and planning their moves, and then you try to anticipate what they're going to do and head them off at the pass, so to speak. So when we had the Battleship challenge, we would go 2 bots head-to-head for like 50 rounds or something like that. Just one round right after another. So you kind of knew that you were going to play a bot for a while before switching over to another bot. A bot could have an error, so you might not play all 50 games with a bot. And you weren't told which bot you were playing. But you kind of had an idea. I'm going to play this bot for a while, so I can start to learn how my opponent is placing his ships. Does he tend to place them in the center, or in the corners, or kind of in between? And you can kind of learn how they place their shots and place your ships at the beginning of the game to avoid their shots. Like some bots will always hit the center first, so then you never place your ships in the center. So you can come up with a single model, which would be good for AI. For Battleship, if you're not getting too complicated. And you can use a hidden Markov model if your opponent is stateful, like we were talking about agents. So you can try to discover what states do they have, and how likely are they to transition, and what state are they likely to be in this turn and next turn. A strategy I use, this actually comes from the stock market world. You have a portfolio of portfolios, which is like saying I'm going to invest in every stock or every mutual fund the same amount of money. And then as one mutual fund starts to outperform another, it's going to naturally be a larger percentage of my portfolio. and then the rate at which it's growing is going to tend to determine the rate that my total portfolio is growing. So with my Battleship AI, I had a model for an opponent that didn't have any AI. It would place its ships randomly, or if it would place its ships uniformly, which is not quite the same, or if it would place its ships to avoid where I hit on the last few times we played. So then I could start anticipating, okay, he's trying to avoid my shots, so he's probably going to go here now because I didn't shoot there the last few games. So now I'm going to shoot there first. So even though their AI is trying to anticipate my AI, I'm out anticipating them. So that's like meta anticipation. But the portfolio of models would be like, how likely would, if I find out where one of their ships is, I can say how likely would this type of player be to put a ship there, how likely would this type of player to be to put a ship there, and so on. And if it's more likely that an avoiding player would put it there, then I start weighting up how much I consider that player to be an avoiding player. If it's less likely to be an avoiding player to put their ship there and more likely to be a random player to put their ship there, then I'll start giving more weight to thinking that they are a random player instead of an avoiding player. So then you tune to exactly the strategy that they are playing. Okay, any questions?
Well, first of all,
Okay.
questions.
Thanks. So we have no idea what our next AI challenge will be, but we hope to do it soon. It depends on when I get time or somebody else gets time to write up the code for the game that our AI bots will compete in. But hopefully soon.
What was your question?
Have you used scikit-learn?
Have I used scikit-learn or skikit-learn? That's SCIKIT.
Yeah.
I have not used that. No.
Wondering, that's Python's like artificial intelligence, or maybe it's machine learning, I guess.
Okay.
Specifically.
Chris says that's a really popular library in Python for machine learning or artificial intelligence.
Yeah. It has neural network stuff, but I've never actually used it.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Dave, just put a link to your presentation, please. Etherpad.
I don't have a link to my presentation.
Put the whole thing in there.
Okay.
Especially with an MIS, Eric Holly's class. Remember he had taught something about Dijkstra's algorithm?
Yeah.
The shortest path plus. A star is something similar to it. Dijkstra's algorithm is only a isolated case of A star algorithm. That's when he looking for
Alright, so we say goodbye to everybody who's online?
Yeah, I guess we can do that. Hi, everybody.
Bye guys, thank you for joining us.